look a little messed up. There's going to be some things that aren't going to come through, but I am hopeful that we'll be doing this together and we're going to be learning along the way. This is a new layout for me. So I'm super excited. I don't know about you guys. I'll have to get some polls and see what you guys are thinking, but I'm overall really excited with this layout. We got it in pretty early last week. So it's gonna take some time to get used to for me, but I hope that you guys like it. I love it. Yeah, you new haircut, definitely. What's up, Brian? How you doing, buddy? Let me know what you think about this background. We just got it, trying to sort of level up the stream experience, how things look, how things feel. There's a couple things that I got to work out. That bar up above that shows, the most recent stars, the most recent like, the most recent follow, things like that. That's currently not working for this week. So it will work in the following weeks. There's just some bugs that I have to sort of work out on my end. But I hope that with this layout, it puts a lot more emphasis on the car, and then we still have the chat and the camera, things like that. So I think it's just a more well thought out layout overall. Thank you, Brian, for liking the stream. Appreciate that. I have that noise turned on for me, and I need to just turn that off in general, because that alert noise, like, I have it off for everybody, and it is just oh so very loud for me. um the live and how many viewers covers up the money. Oh, that is a good call out, my friend. Thank you for that. Those are the things that I sort of can't see when I'm looking at this, right? Is just like, how does it look on the phone? Does it feel right? How does it look on a computer? If people are watching this on their television, how does it look? How does it appear? How does it feel? So that information is super key to me. So if anybody has any more feedback on how the Money Shift stream looks as we go along, please do let me know. Keep me posted, because I'm trying to, like I said, give everybody a better experience and have something that just is easier to see the cars that I'm talking about. I'm actually really excited for today's episode. There was a metric shit ton of car news last week, like actually a lot. So I'm hopeful that we can get through that and we'll talk about it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop those into the chat at any time. This is going to be a decent sized stream, I would say, today, between the car news and then the amount of questions we got beforehand. Get locked and loaded. Put yourself on the TV, kick back, relax, grab a beer, grab some whiskey, whatever you want. Just tune in to some awesome car news. Okay, so I'm going to hit the save button on here, and I'm going to hit the start button, and we are going to get going. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Money Shift Podcast. I am Thanasi, and today we have a ton of car news. I thought a couple weeks ago was going to be the most recent blip in terms of car news, but last week was really big, and big shout out to Nissan for making that possible. But even today, we got some car news that is really important and that I'm excited to go over with everyone. For those of you that are tuned in on the stream, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and shoot us a follow for weekly car news. Every Tuesday night at 7:30, we get together and we talk about the car world, both before stream and after stream. There's some content that doesn't get covered on the podcast, but it's just a lot of fun to just shoot the shit, talk cars, and hang out with you guys. And I'm looking for feedback. So we have a new layout on the stream. So for those of you tuning in, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, tell me what you want to go, tell me just overall what you think about the layout. I'm super pumped. I think it's a big level up, but yeah, Brian says, your picture's really small. That's the only thing I don't love. So that I get. I want to put a little more emphasis on the car and not myself, but maybe there's a fine balance there that I can play as we go along. So without further ado, let's talk about what happened with me car-wise. So the only thing that happened with me car-wise is this package that I'm holding right here. Went down to the local speed shop, and local means 20-minute drive. There's this place called HMS. Okay, they're in Danvers, Massachusetts. And they are the go-to location to purchase anything safety related. And the reason why I say they're go-to is, sure, you may be able to find, a seat or a helmet or whatever online, and it might be a little cheaper. But the thing that this place has going for it is you can go there, you can try the stuff on, you can sort of give it a feel, see how you like it. You know, does that helmet fit you? Do those gloves? Does that race suit? Do those shoes? And they can sort of walk you through that process. Those are things I really enjoy. So I got these bad Larrys. Okay. They're OMP gloves, and I got them for a couple reasons. So one, the steering wheel that's going into the Civic, the K-Swap Civic, is Alcantara. So if you don't use something like a glove, the oil in your fingers just absolutely fucking destroys that wheel. Shout out to Brian for the stars. Thank you, Brian, for the 100 stars. Appreciate that, my man, as always. Thank you for supporting myself in the stream. Definitely. But going back to those gloves, so they not only preserve the Alcantara on the steering wheel, but they also give you an increased amount of grip on your hands. And what that means is you're not white knuckling the steering wheel, right? Have you guys ever, been on a spirited drive, been on a track day, something like that, and you're gripping the steering wheel because not only are you rolling around in the seat, so you have to grip on the steering wheel extra hard, but maybe you're nervous, whatever that is. So these help because the amount of grip that they give you means that you can apply less pressure onto the steering wheel and still maintain equal levels of grip. So really excited to have those. The next step is just getting a proper seat for the car so I'm not sloshing around. I mean, currently it has Integra leather seats. So those definitely need to go. So if anybody in the chat needs leather seats for an Integra, you let me know. Fred, you already know. You already know. We went to HMS. We got the right gear. I'm locked and loaded. We're ready to go. All right. So with myself out of the way, with the Civic out of the way, let's get into this week's news. Shout out to Kurt for sharing the stream. And for those of you that haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button. If you haven't already, I'll forgive you, but hit it now, please. All right, let's get started with today's news. We're going to start with Nissan because I actually think Nissan had the week that they've needed. They've needed it for a long, long time. We've talked about Nissan on this program for the past couple of years, and we've mentioned that they've just been lagging. Their quality of their machines has gone down. They've put a CVT in absolutely everything. The engines have been lackluster. The interiors, maybe the exterior design is nice, but everything else just falls by the wayside. So Nissan had to come back. And this week they unveiled two machines that I think did just that. Like, they were good enough, I would even venture on saying exciting, that reinvigorate my want for a Nissan product, which is something I can confidently say I haven't had for maybe 10 years. And that's 10 years is since the original 370Z and GTR came out. And when I say original, I obviously mean the current generation, right? Since they first dropped. So the first car we're going to cover is probably the one that's semi less exciting to us, but the one that did 100 times better on the Facebook page. Like, I was genuinely surprised. It actually did almost 10 times better than the second car that we're going to talk about. And that's this guy right here. That is the Nissan Pathfinder. So if we remember the arc of the Pathfinder started out as something that was just a small 2-door, maybe 4-door, boxy 4x4, right? This thing was meant to go off-road. This thing was meant to be reliable, meant to have fun. And it slowly evolved, okay, into this CVT Econo box for the soccer mom. And the last generation was probably the worst generation Pathfinder of them all, right? I would actually buy a first generation Pathfinder over a today new Pathfinder. So that's a huge red flag, right? Something's wrong there. So Nissan dropped this, and I'll tell you why it's exciting. Let's go over the details and see if you guys can figure it out. So the brand new Pathfinder is dropped. It has 284 horsepower, 259 pound-feet of torque. It's that classic 3.5-liter V6. It continues to live on. 9-speed automatic, okay, 3-row SUV. It can tow 6,000 pounds. It's got a 9-inch infotainment system with a digital instrument cluster. It's got acoustic laminated glass and thicker second-row windows to just keep the noise in, right? Keep the outside noise out. the biggest thing here, right, aside from the fact that, Nissan made it a point that you could fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood now in the back between the wheel wells, is that the CVT is gone. It's not there, guys. Nissan didn't put a CVT in what is one of their probably second or third highest selling cars. Brian asks, acoustic laminated glass, what is that? It's a specific laminate that they put on the glass that is entirely designed to keep noise out. So they use the word acoustic because it's directly related to noise. That's the only reason. It's not like there's a guitar in the glass or anything like that. It's just designed to keep the cabin quieter, right? So with the CVT being gone, that was probably one of the bigger gripes of the last generation, what I'll call current generation Pathfinder. So with the introduction of the 9-speed auto, now we're getting something that's a bit more normal, right? Where the transmission doesn't take away from the driving experience because you no longer have the, depending on, where your throttle is. But add to that, they returned to form with the boxy styling, right? If you look at this thing, although it is definitely more modern, it takes its huge inspiration in the front end from the Rogue, for which it is their best-selling SUV. But it is overall a really boxy thing. The current generation Pathfinder is rounded, right? In multiple places in the front, the rear, stuff like that. This is boxy. And you can tell where they had to save money, right? Because they made a lot of changes, but as we've covered on this show before extensively, Nissan isn't doing the best financially. So they definitely saved in places, right? It leverages the same 3.5-liter V6 engine, right? That they've been using for the last God knows how long. So they saved money in places where it doesn't necessarily hurt them, but it seems like they spent money in places that's really, really great. Like, there's actually genuine excitement for this Pathfinder, and that's not something that I sort of expected when I heard that Nissan was launching the Pathfinder this week, right? I didn't expect for 10,000 people to see the post that we put up about the Pathfinder, or 2, to have the levels of engagement and shares. I think I posted about this and then the next Nissan that we're going to be talking about. And like I said, this got 10 times the levels of engagement. People are really excited, not only for the new design of the Pathfinder, but the fact that it doesn't have that CVT transmission anymore. And they went back to sort of basics on that front, which is really, really, really exciting. Nissan says this car was overall designed so it could handle both an easy trail, right? This thing isn't going to be, mud bogging. But it could also handle a Home Depot run. So this is a big home run for me, honestly. And I know, it's an SUV, and it's not the thing we're most excited about on this program, but Kurt says it, big Pathfinder fan. He goes, you could fit a queen-size bed in that thing, and you could probably fit one in this too. If you can fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood, you're going to fit a bed. No problem. I don't know how big a queen bed is. Maybe I should look at that before I make that statement. Yeah, Patricia, totally agree. I think it looks great. I really, really do like the design of this car. So moving on to the second Nissan that was unveiled this week. Again, all-star week for Nissan. Like, really, really great week for Nissan. And that is this guy right here. Apparently the first shot that I uploaded was an interior shot, so I apologize for those watching on stream. But it is probably the thing that I'm personally most excited about, and that is a new Nissan Frontier. Now, for those of you that know Nissan really well, you know that the current Frontier has been around since 2005. Shout out to Brian for the 50 stars. Appreciate that, my man. But that's huge about the plywood. I totally agree. The fact that Nissan not only thought about the usability, right, and random niche situations like plywood, but also thought about, the soccer mom in the 3-row and things like that. Pathfinder was a huge hit. So the Frontier, I also think, was a huge hit. So let's quickly talk about the details, and then I'll go into why I really, really like this new Frontier. So it's got a 3.8-liter V6, that same 9-speed automatic transmission that we talked about in the Pathfinder. Zero gravity front seats, ooh la la. Designed to make long drives less painful. What zero gravity front seats do is they alleviate pressure points as you sit, right? New steering rack for a better feel. larger stabilizer bars. You can get this in rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. Shout out to Kurt Steiner with the 200 stars. That's my guy right there. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. This has a Pro 4X model, which is the model that, if you guys are watching the stream, is currently on right now. The Pro 4X model is freaking cool, and we'll get into what makes it cool in a second. This car can tow 6,490 pounds, so almost 500 more than the Nissan Pathfinder. So let's talk about this for a little bit. Let's talk about where Nissan saved money, because we established that on the Pathfinder, they definitely saved money. Brian with the answer, 51 stars, one more than Kurt's total. Uh-oh, Kurt, you got to respond here. You can't let Brian get away with this. No way. So let's talk about where Nissan saved money with this Frontier. Okay. The first place, the drivetrain. This 3.8 liter V6 and that 9-speed automatic. Kurt with the answer, 50 more stars. I don't know, Brian. I don't know. So they saved with that driveline. That 3.8 liter V6, that 9-speed automatic, those are carryovers from the current 2020 Frontier. So if you like the design of the Frontier that exists today, you can get this same engine. For whatever reason, Nissan decided to put that 3.8 liter V6 with that 9-speed automatic for 1 year only in the 2020 Frontier. So you can get that today, but they are saving money by carrying over that unit to this model. Another way that they're saving money with this Nissan Frontier is they're using the same chassis of the outgoing Frontier. So this Nissan Frontier is based on the older Frontier chassis. Sure, it's strengthened in some ways, in some respects, but it is the same chassis with a new body on it, right? And new suspension and things like that, but it's based on the same platform. Uh-oh, Brian with the answer, 50 more stars. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Appreciate that for sure. It is a battle between Brian and Kurt right now on the Star Train, and it's great to see. So what are my thoughts on this Frontier? I am stoked. I'm obsessed with the design. I think it is very, very good. The interior looks fantastic. It is what it needs to be, right? Is the interior modern? No. Is it a Ram 1500 Limited with the large screen and the leather and all that stuff? No. Does it have everything you need where you need it? Yes. Is it laid out clear and clean? Yes. And that's all you need in the interior of a pickup truck, right? For me, what I want in a pickup truck is something that drives right, which is hopefully what that 3.8 liter V6 9-speed automatic and new steering rack can provide. Something that looks right, which this does 100%. If you're looking at this and comparing it to the Ranger, the Colorado, the Canyon, the Tacoma, the Ridgeline, this looks arguably just as good, if not better, than the Tacoma, which is the class leader in the segment by far, right? So Nissan hit their marks in terms of what they needed to produce in order to be competitive in this segment, which is why I talked about in the beginning of the show when I thought Nissan had an all-star week, right? All-star week. They killed it this week. Killed it. And that is with that Frontier, for sure. Uh-oh. Kurt says, Brian, I need to hit up Wario for more stars, and uses 68 stars on the stream. Shout out to Kurt. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. So I talked about the Pro 4X being a model that was around, and let's talk about what makes the Pro 4X special and why it's going up against that Tacoma TRD Pro. So the Pro 4X uses electronic diffs, Bilstein shocks, skid plates, and a Dana rear axle for more strength. That's awesome. That's effectively what the TRD Pro is, right? It's not a Raptor competitor. It's not a TRX. It's not anything like that. It's something that has upgraded shocks, better diffs, bigger axle, or stronger axle, skid plates, things like that, right? That's all the Tacoma Pro 4X is. And that's what the Pro 4X is here. It's perfect. I don't think Nissan could have nailed this any more with what they did. I think they crushed the new Frontier. They crushed it. Yeah, Brian, you are still on top for sure. Kurt's got to catch up. Kurt's definitely got to catch up, but he's coming. He's coming for that top spot. But yeah, I think Nissan absolutely crushed it. You'll be able to get this thing in a king cab or a crew cab. And it has 360-degree camera to help you navigate trails. It's got a full safety shield suite, all of that. Brian dropping down the 344 stars saying, get out of here. I am still on top. That is a message to everybody on the stream. Brian is the king of the stream. Shout out to Brian. For sure. Kurt with the answer. Guys, you're killing me here. My gosh. But I think Nissan absolutely crushed this. They did exactly what they needed to do to produce a vehicle that was new enough to appear modern, relevant, and technologically advanced, but utilize enough of the existing Frontier platform to save some costs. Word on the street is the base price for this car, $28,000, which is right in line with the Tacoma. Pro 4X price, $46,000, which is $2,000 more than that Tacoma Tacoma TRD Pro. So it is lockstep with the Tacoma, both in stats and in price. And I think it warrants it. I think it delivers. I'm really, really, really excited about this Frontier to the point to where it comes out on dealer lots. I'm going to go check it out. I really like this design, guys. Not kidding. I love this thing. So hopefully we can get our hands on it and we can go for a drive and see if it delivers against things like the Tacoma, like the Ranger, like the Colorado, like the Canyon. Moving on, I want to talk about a company that maybe some of you guys haven't heard of. That company is DS. So why am I talking about DS Automobiles before we get to what this car that, for those of you that are watching on stream, are looking at? So DS Automobiles is under Stellantis. And for those of you that have tuned into this show before, you know that Stellantis is the merger of some European car companies and some American car companies. Those American car companies, FCA. So you got Dodge, you got Ram, you got Chrysler, okay? And then the European car companies, Lancia, Citroën, DS Automobile, Alfa, Lancia, etc. Right now, all under one brand. So why am I showing you the new DS4 by DS Automobiles? Okay, the reason why I'm showing you this is because now with every new product unveiling from a car that's under the Stellantis branch, there's a chance that it could come to the United States both as it is or rebranded as something else. Big shout to Patricia with the 50 stars. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Joe, how we doing? Welcome. Welcome to the stream, my man. For those of you watching, don't forget to hit that like button. I know maybe you have, but don't forget. It's important, okay? So what you're looking at right now, okay? Wow, Joe, dropping the 478-star bomb, wants to be king of the stream. That's a big drop. Shout out to Joe. Thank you for that, buddy. So this car that you're looking at right now, okay, let's talk about what it is quickly. The DS Automobiles DS4 comes with 3 powertrain options, okay? You can get this with either a plug-in hybrid, gas, or diesel. If this is going to make it to the United States, it likely will just be in plug-in hybrid form. So that is what I'm going to focus my efforts on, right? Brian, you are at 595. I'm just warning you of the competitors. There's people coming, and they're coming fast. Okay. So the DS4 comes in 3 powertrain options like we talked about, but the plug-in hybrid is what we're going to focus on. That has 225 horsepower, okay? And it has an all-electric range of 30 miles. Pretty good for a little hatchback, right? 225 horse, 30-mile all-electric range. Not bad, right? This comes in 2 versions. This is one of them, the orange one. It's a DS4 Cross. It's not any higher, but it does have things like slip control and hill descent. And then there's also this one, which is the regular just DS4. So DS4 started out as DS started out as the luxury division of Citroën, but then they sort of shot off as their own brand. So DS is now their own entity. But the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because there is a non-zero chance that this car comes either branded as a DS or as a Chrysler. I really think that Stellantis should consider bringing this car and badging it as a Chrysler PT Cruiser. What do you guys think? Those of you in the chat right now, let me know your thoughts. Should this be the Chrysler PT Cruiser? I don't see why not. It's luxury. It's small. It's a hatchback. It has plug-in hybrid technology. It looks the part, right? Bring back the PT, the car that saved Chrysler, right? For a period of time. They sold so many of those fucking things. That's why I'm showing you this car, right? And that's why I'm keeping you up to date with not only the things that are going on in the US with Stellantis, but in the world, because there is a chance that this car comes to this side of the Pacific or the Atlantic, whatever you prefer, in terms of by means to get to the US. There's a real chance that this car comes to the States, right? For sure. And I'm a big fan. I think it looks the part. Joe says it doesn't have wood paneling. I agree. We could use that. Maybe you modernize the wood paneling by, instead of doing the plastic cladding around the fenders like they do on the DS4 Cross, maybe do a little wood there. A little wood, you know? But yeah, really cool design. Hopefully this comes here in some capacity. I think it could do really well, especially in that plug-in hybrid form with 30 miles of electric range. While that wasn't enough for people for the Chevrolet Volt, I think if this car is priced right, in the point to where it's under something like an Audi A3 or a Mercedes CLA, let's say this is priced along the lines of a Mazda 3, then you're in the money, right? For sure. So we'll see what happens, but really, really good looking car. Really good looking car. So let's move on to one last, we got three more things. So one of the things that I wanted to cover for you guys, we talked about it in the Daytona 24-hour preview, was the Le Mans Championship in 2023. Okay, so in 2023, the rules are going to change for the WEC, and they're going to be inclusive of two new classes. Okay, LMP1 gone in 2023, but what comes is Le Mans Hybrid and Le Mans Daytona Hybrid. Okay. Or Le Mans Hypercar and Daytona Hybrid. The Le Mans Daytona Hybrid leverages cars that you guys saw last week in the Daytona 24-hour. Things like that Acura DPI, things like the Cadillac DPI, stuff like that, the Mazda, right? Those are going to be the cars in the DPI class. But then there's a class above that. There's LMH, and that's the Toyota that we talked about, right? Hypercars that are now race cars. You know what I mean? And Peugeot also announced... Brian, thank you for stopping by, my man. Absolute pleasure. King of the stream. May you forever reign. Thanks for stopping by, Brian. Appreciate it, buddy. So Peugeot is entering a car into the hypercar class. And even though that class is 2 years away, they've already announced who their drivers are. And there's some interesting drivers in this list for a couple reasons that I'll touch on. So let's talk about their drivers. First, Luc Duval, French driver, won the 24-hour with Audi. Very qualified. Second driver, Jean-Eric Vergne, two-time LMP2 24-hour winner. Two-time Formula E champion, also French. Shout out to Peugeot using French drivers. Driver number 3 is the guy to the right of the middle there, Kevin Magnussen. Haas F1 driver, current Chip Ganassi DPI driver. You got Mikael Jensen, 2019 LMP3 champ. Paul di Resta, who is a DTM and LMP2 champion. Gustavo Menezes, who's an LMP2 champion, and the reserve driver is James Rossiter. So a couple things that are interesting. One, Peugeot's going to have 2 cars. There's no way they're fielding 7 drivers in one car. That's awesome. 2, they're using French drivers. Really, really cool. 3, the Kevin Magnussen one is pretty interesting to me because he just started with Cadillac over at Chip Ganassi in the DPI team. So maybe it's an identifier that Cadillac isn't pursuing LMDH, and he just really wanted to go for that hypercar class. Maybe that's it. I think that's it. That kind of sounds like it. Brian leaving on top with the 200 stars. Shout out to Brian. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. So it'll be interesting. I don't know what this means for Ganassi. Cadillac right now is up in the air in terms of if they want to compete in the LMDH series in 2023. Reason being is Cadillac's announced that they're going full electric. So they don't know if going into the DH class is something that's on brand for them, but they're still figuring it out. So maybe Kevin Magnussen knows something we don't, and that's why he's choosing to go with Peugeot Sport and their LMH car for Le Mans in 2023. So thought that was interesting. Wanted to cover those drivers for you guys. But let's move on to more trucks. Ford launched their new F-150 Raptor this week. And god damn it, is competition awesome. Isn't it great, right? Like, what is LeBron James without good competition? What is Tom Brady without good competition? What is the Ford F-150 Raptor without the TRX? More trucks, more trucks. Yes, Patricia, yes, more trucks. So here it is. You guys are looking at it. I'm quickly going to go over the details, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Engine, 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6. EcoBoost means twin turbo. Not eco at all. Twin turbo V6. 10-speed automatic. Same 10-speed that's co-developed with GM. Horsepower and torque not confirmed, but Ford says it's going to be relatively unchanged. So more of a quality of life improvement over something like a actual noticeable power bump. Okay. Torsen front limited slip diff is available. Standard electronic locking rear diff. Ford says they did change the turbochargers and they're now state of the art. There's new fans, new cooling, and there's an active exhaust system that is equal length that actually drew inspiration from the likes of the Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio and cars like the R35 GTR, all in an effort to make this thing not actually sound like shit. And I know that kind of sounds strong, but Raptor owners will agree, and they'll be the first to tell you that the current Ford Raptor doesn't sound the best. It just doesn't. So Ford put a lot of effort into making sure that the exhaust system that goes on this new Raptor makes that EcoBoost V6 engine sound just a little bit better. Okay. And we'll see if it does. I've yet to hear this thing with my own ears. But one would hope that if they put that much investment in this, including things like a trombone loop and active valves, that it'll give it a throatier soundtrack. And that's been a big problem for the current generation of Raptor. Other things that are new on the Ford Raptor is they've completely redesigned the rear suspension. So they've given it a 5-link rear, okay, which is a setup that's actually similar to the Ram TRX. They left the leaf suspension in the past. Ford then put new shocks from Fox, paired them with huge 24-inch coil springs for maximum travel. This car comes with 35-inch tires stock, and you can get 37-inch ones available, which is hilarious. The Raptor will also have some sort of off-road cruise control, which will allow for one-pedal driving. They call it Trail one-pedal drive. It's sort of like a point-and-shoot situation where you set the speed and it'll just navigate at that consistent speed. So there's an elephant in the room, and I'll talk about it. Where's the V8? Where is it, right? But that, my friends, is the reason why competition is so great. Because before the Ram TRX was around, Ford was developing this Raptor, right? Ford was putting time and resources behind honing in the sound, honing in the suspension, honing in the look, okay? And then Ram comes out, and they're like, hey, buddy, we just put this big honking V8, okay? We supercharged it to 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. Makes your Raptor look like a bitch. Okay? Ford's sitting there, and they're like, well, shit, okay? We got something that costs a lot less in the Raptor, right? People are buying them in waves, but we can't be outdone in a space that we kind of created. So Ford announced and confirmed that they're going to be making a Raptor R with a V8. They've confirmed that it'll have over 700 horsepower. And that model wouldn't have existed. I'm willing to bet all my life savings, so tens of dollars, that without the Ram TRX coming around, there would have been no Raptor R with a 700 horsepower V8. Because what incentive do they have to make it, right? Raptor ditched the V8 when they went to the current generation for a twin-turbo V6, and people still bought it. They bitched a little bit. They're like, where's the V8? But whatever, there's no other truck in this segment. I'm going to buy it. I'm not going to buy a Bison. Are you kidding me? So they got people to buy it, and then Ram comes out with the V8. Okay, and Ford's just like, well, shit, we kind of got to do the same thing. And they did. They're doing it. But that's why on launch day, you didn't see the R, because it's not ready yet. Because they weren't ready. Ram caught them by surprise. But because they did, we're able to get a 700 horsepower Raptor. And for that, I'm thankful. And you should be too. I don't care if you're the biggest Ford fan in the world. I don't care if you own a Ford dealership. I don't care if you have 10 Raptors at your house. I don't care. I just don't care. You should love the fact that the TRX exists, because it means that your lovely Raptor is going to get a V8 and it's going to get over 700 horsepower. Nico asks, Raptor also has rear-wheel drive. Isn't the TRX only all-wheel drive? But an R Raptor sounds great. I'm actually unsure if you can get the modern Raptor in the rear-wheel drive configuration. I'll look into that maybe in the post-podcast portion of this. Yeah, I know the TRX is full-time four-wheel for sure. Improvements to the F-150 make this Raptor an overall better place to be. You have bigger paddles. You have a way better infotainment system. The brand new F-150 changes enough to look new, but not enough to make it unrecognizable. This thing still looks like an F-150 to anyone that has ever seen an F-150, right? Whereas Ram has gone for a pretty big departure generation to generation. Ford can't afford to do that because this is the number one selling vehicle in the United States, right? So I don't envy the F-150 designers one bit. Not at all. When it came to redesigning this thing. So I think overall they nailed the design of the Raptor. It is a evolution to the Raptor, to the F-150, and I'm really looking forward to the Raptor R. It would be awesome to see it be even wider than this regular Raptor. I don't know if they'll make any other changes, like maybe 37s will be standard. Who knows? Shout out to Patricia with the 100 stars. Brian's gone, but she's coming for the crown. For sure. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So moving on to the last bit of news tonight, and this news came in today. Audi just dropped their new electric sedan. Here it is. This is the Audi e-tron GT. Now, they released two models of the GT. They released the regular e-tron and the RS. So again, just like we did with all the other cars today, let's talk about them in detail, and then we'll get into thoughts for, against, whatever, what have you. Okay, two models, like I said earlier, RS and normal. They both dual motor. They both have a 2-speed. They both have 800-volt electric charging capability, which allows them to go from 5% charge to 80% charge in just 22 minutes. I know that is longer than a 5-minute gas stop, but 22 minutes is a lot faster than we've seen for a couple years. 238 miles of range in the regular e-tron, 232 miles of range in the RS, so a difference of 6 miles there. The interior is leather-free. It utilizes recycled bottles, among other things, to get the materials it has. It has a 0.24 drag coefficient, which is the same as a Model S. The regular e-tron has 469 horsepower and 464 pound-feet of torque, and it does 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. The RS version has 590 horsepower, 612 pound-feet of torque, thanks to a larger rear motor, and it does 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. So 0.85 faster than the regular e-tron. Audi made a large emphasis during this presentation to really talk about the driving experience. Audi describes the e-tron as a dynamic drive. The suspension is a double wishbone setup, and thanks to an electromechanical system for the steering, they hope that it'll feel very natural. Okay. The price, $99,000 for the regular GT and $139,000 for the RS. Both of these cars do qualify for the $7,500 kickback, which helps, but it is tough to ignore the price tag. And Nico in the chat brings up a great point. He says, it does resemble the Taycan a little. Do you think it platform shares with anything? So actually, it platform shares with pretty much everything. It leverages the same motors. It leverages the same 2-speed transmission. It's probably based on the same skateboard as the Taycan for sure. Where the Audi will likely differ is driving experience, right? Volkswagen Audi Auto Group is incredible at differentiating cars that utilize a similar chassis, right? Think about the Cayenne, think about the Q7, think about the Touareg. 3 cars based on the exact same body, chassis, but they're all completely different. Think about the Macan. Think about the Q5. 2 cars based on the same chassis. Completely different, right? So they've been really, really good at sharing similar tech, but providing different experiences. So I'm pretty confident they'll be able to do the same with this. So while it looks very similar, and Brian says he's right, it's got a Porsche look to it, there's no doubt that this car does resemble a Taycan for sure in terms of shape. I mean, look at this shot right here, this rear 3-quarter shot. If I covered up the lights and put the Taycan lights on, you'd be like, oh shit, that's a Taycan. But it does also look very much so like an Audi, right? It has a lot of Audi cues. It has the A7 taillight design. It has the modern Audi face. It has an Audi interior, which is nice to see actual buttons. I think this is one of the first electric cars that just isn't a screen. There's actual buttons there. And that's nice. That's real nice. You know? Yeah, Nico says, I'm curious to see how it stacks up against the Plaid. So this has been a common theme. I've posted this now on the Money Shift channel. It's been up for about 6 hours. And a couple of the comments that we've gotten is hey, T, you know, this thing's $99,000. Tesla Model S Plaid is relatively similar price. In fact, I'm actually going to pull up the price so we can get it. And the Tesla blows it out of the water performance-wise, both in range as well as 0 to 60, right? The Plaid itself is $114,000. Actually, it might be more than that. Yeah, $119,000. So it's the same price, roughly. Or actually, no, it's $20,000 less than the RS e-tron. Okay. And it gets 390 miles of range, which is about 160 more than this Audi. It does 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds, which is a full second faster than this Audi. But where I think this Audi will thrive is feel and experience to drive. I made this analogy earlier, and it was kind of awkward to use, but think about a car like the Lotus Elise or the Alfa 4C. Maybe the Alfa 4C is a better example. That car is lightweight. That car is low on power. But even though it's the same price as something like a Camaro ZL1, both of those cars have merit because they're really good at providing 2 different types of experiences. Where the Plaid from Tesla is incredible at being this like, holy shit, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, which is mental, by the way. The Taycan has shown that it's a canyon carver, that it can get after it on track, that it's fun to drive in a back road. It's engaging, right? And that's where I think this e-tron is going to slide in as well. Where the Tesla is something that is probably the better overall daily driver because it has more range, quite frankly, more extensive charging system, etc. If you look at them car for car, take out the charging, take out the range, I bet you the e-tron is going to be a better driving experience than something like this Model S Plaid. Is the Model S Plaid still going to be a great car? No doubt. I'm sure it's going to be fine if you can get past the predictive gear selector and that interior. Patricia asks, what's the green color called? I'm not sure, but I want it on every single vehicle I own. It's gorgeous. I adore it. Is that green? I thought it was kind of tan. Who knows? But yeah, that's the episode today when it comes to talking about new car news. So there was a lot of stuff there. Nico says, will there be another case of it having more range than advertised like the Taycan? Yes, 100%. I'm very confident that they underestimated the range of this car. You got to remember when Porsche and Audi and most of these German automakers, it's the same thing for the cars like that are coming out of BMW and Mercedes as well. The reason why they're underreporting range and doing things like 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds or 3.1 instead of this 1.9 is because they're really trying to focus on cars that can sustain similar levels of performance over the entire life of ownership. Same battery levels in terms of range, same performance, right? It's been proven for a lot of electric cars that they reduce in range over time. So if Audi, Porsche, etc. are conservative with their range estimate early, then it's more likely that over the course of the life of the car, you'll maintain that level of range because they've baked in the degradation, right? So I don't think there's any doubt that you'll find more range on any given drive of your car. Okay. So let's get into some viewer questions. I'm going to leave up this Audi e-tron photo set for those of you that are watching the stream because it is just a damn beautiful car for sure. First question comes from John Raftery. He says, is the new Genesis GV70 the best looking SUV or is it still the Telluride? For those of you that aren't followers of the Money Shift YouTube page, Jesus, the Money Shift Instagram or Facebook, we posted this car on release, but the Genesis GV70 is the small SUV from Genesis that's coming soon. It looks incredible. I do think it is the best looking SUV in its segment for sure. Its segment is the X3, the Q3, and the GLC. The GV70 blows them out of the water, and it's actually something that I would consider owning for sure. Nathan Luce says, booty shorts or yoga pants? That answer is simple. It is yoga pants, sir. Thank you. Sean Kennedy says, with the push for more and more electric vehicles, what are automakers going to do to help sustain the huge burden that will be placed on our already fragile power grid? What will they do to look into sustainable energy sources? 90% of America's power grid is fossil fuels. Great question. There's actually a couple ways to think about this. So one, let's focus on the power grid first. So if you think about our history and with the invention and innovations of a lot of technologies, how we've leveraged and utilized the power grid more, there have been moments and influxes where different technologies have come out that have caused the amount of strain on the grid to skyrocket, right? Think about the invent of the air conditioner, right? We had an infrastructure, we had a power grid. Now people are everywhere are plugging in these air conditioners that take up a lot of energy, right? And they're using them all day. So we've definitely dealt with things like this. And the adoption rate of electric cars is such that it's giving these towns, these municipalities, these states, this country time to get to that point. Not everybody is switching to electric cars tomorrow. Even though Tesla sold 500,000 cars last year, that is a small portion, sub 10% of market share of overall automaker sales. So there's a lot of runway to be had before it's mass produced, which is giving these towns, municipalities, countries, whatever, time to sort of reinforce the power grid to get to that point, right? There's also a lot of points in the day where we aren't using energy, and there's thousands upon thousands of vehicles that could be temporary energy stores. So something that is being worked on right now is this sort of V2G technology, which is vehicle to grid. So think about the MBTA for a second, right? They have a lot of buses. Those buses are eventually going to be all electric. Those batteries are going to be large. They're going to be able to store a lot. A lot of the MBTA buses remain idle, right? There's portions of time where you have a lot of buses and fleets, call it weekends, where they remain idle. If they're being charged, that power can be stored in those batteries. And when there's a peak time where it's needed, because let's say all of Massachusetts is charging their electric car, then they can pull from those batteries to supplement the network, right? So vehicle to grid technology is something that is being developed and already being used, and it helps ease the strain on a power grid that, quite frankly, actually can sustain electric cars right now. If you look up studies by Auto Week, studies by even Electrify America, and others, we actually do have the infrastructure right now to do so. So there is some things going. Now you could make the conversation like you do in your next question, where it says, what will they do to look into sustainable energy sources? Because 90% of America uses fossil fuels. I don't know the exact percentage, but I can feel like it is definitely, about or around that high. And they are making inroads to try and do change there, right? There's big pushes for solar, big pushes for geothermal, things like that. So that's more of a conversation on how to be overall green. And I think there's no way you can make this push to electric cars and not think about where the electricity comes from. It seems very short-sighted. And there is a lot of infrastructure that's going into place that is bringing in these new electric, technologies. So I think we'll be fine, but that's a really, really great question to ask for sure. Thanks for that. Paolo says, is Tesla becoming a meme? Between Dogecoin and Bitcoin, along with massive influence on pop culture, should he be more careful with what he tweets? In fact, he himself has said he does need to be more careful, and he's going to be tweeting less. But there is no doubt that he is doing things on purpose, for sure, especially with Dogecoin, right? How is it going, Arya? Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Welcome. Doge to the moon. Exactly right. Yeah. There's no doubt that Elon knows, and he knows exactly what he's doing, right? He knows 100% when he makes a tweet with a Doge over a rocket that it affects the price. He knows. So in that respect, it is becoming a meme for sure. Matt Jennison says, what cars ended up being the worst bang for the buck in 2020? Direct your attention to www.infinity.com. All of those cars are the worst bang for the buck, but weeks like this, where we see Nissan put out things they put out, give me some excitement for Infinity. They do. They just do. So maybe they can turn it around, but they definitely were the worst bang for the buck in 2020 for sure. Alexandros Fertakis says, is the new e-tron GT a Taycan on a budget, or is the Porsche worth the extra money? I wouldn't say that the e-tron GT is a budget Taycan, because if you look at their pricing, the base e-tron GT has about a $7,000 difference to a Taycan 4S, which is the base model all-wheel drive Taycan. So I don't know if $7,000 you can call something a budget version. I will say the Porsche probably is worth the extra money. I feel like they're just going to have such unique driving experiences to the point to where both of them are valued on the marketplace, for sure. Luke says, I saw a post on a car group earlier this week about how far behind electric semi-trucks and their capabilities are compared to electric vehicles. That's interesting. And I think it's a lot of the reason is because, well, two things. One, the companies that have been developing semi-green technology have been focusing a lot on hydrogen. And the reason is quicker fuel times and bigger range with hydrogen, while still leveraging electric technology, because what hydrogen is it leverages the hydrogen to power the batteries that then power the motors, right? And the reason why they're focusing on hydrogen is because it's quicker fill-up times, like I just said, and they can have ranges of like 800,000 miles, not the 300-400 that a Tesla Semi has. So I think that's why you haven't seen as many gains, because now they're trying to figure out, okay, if we have this hybrid or hydrogen technology in these semis, how the fuck are we going to build hydrogen infrastructure? Toyota has put a lot of money behind hydrogen. Hyundai has put a lot of money behind hydrogen. And, the fraud Nikola company, also, same thing, put whatever of GM's money they had into hydrogen. you know? So I think that's a big reason as to why we haven't seen things like the Tesla Semi come from more people than just Tesla. That'll likely change as battery infrastructure, as battery technology continues to improve. But for right now, I just think it's because a lot of those companies have been putting their efforts into hydrogen. Shaw says, when is BMW going to decide not to suck? I think BMW is in for a rude awakening. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to hit, and it's going to hit them hard. And then whatever the leadership is that's in there is going to get ousted. And then whoever comes in is going to have a definite Genesis type situation where they just bring them back to their old days and, bring them back to the good times, because that's what they need. So I don't know when that time is, but I feel like it's coming soon. I feel like it's coming. It has to come soon. Chris Shipman says, I agree with Sean. He says, we all know and understand that electric is going to be the new wave. It's been beat into everyone's head. But are we as a society ready for that? What does going full electric mean for the consumer? What does it mean for the car community? What will we do? Buying cams, valves, pistons isn't an option anymore because you can't upgrade an electric motor like you can internal combustion engine. So is our entire community of tinkerers getting undermined, or will we become the rock stars of the next generation with our modified ICE cars when they're a thing of the past? That's a really interesting point, right? What happens to the car community? And I think the biggest evolution is going to be people that are able to put electric technology into those older cars that you love, right? The Tesla swapped Honda Accords, the Tesla swapped Civics, the Tesla swapped E30s, the electric swapped whatever. I think that's going to be the new wave of modifiers, because even though you can't increase the performance of your Model S in terms of like straight line speed, you can still do things like coilovers, brakes, tires, sway, but like you can still do suspension and wheel tire that has a profound effect on the performance of the car. But I think where the modifier comes in is swapping in that technology into older ICE cars. I think that's the wave there. Then he says, or just talk about the new CX-30 Turbo, which, by the way, super hyped about that thing. But you got to remember, with Mazda's push to a more luxury-oriented feel, right? They're trying to compete with Audi and Mercedes, not with Honda and Acura. Not with Honda and Toyota. It's probably going to be a more GLA type feel car or X3 type feel car, and not something that's like, holy shit, it's a 2.5 liter turbo that has 310 torque, all-wheel drive, little SUV. This thing must be a fucking riot. No, it's probably going to have like acceleration that feels more like thrust, right? So, I'm excited for the brand. I think Mazda's doing an incredible job at pushing up market, but it also means that you have moments like this where you sort of expect the CX-30 Turbo to be something kind of like the Kona N, and it's not that at all. It's more like a GLE competitor, or a GLA, excuse me. Joe says, can't you get a Mazda 3 with a 4-cylinder all-wheel drive stick? So that's the interesting thing. You can get the new Mazda 3 in a stick, but it's only the naturally aspirated front-wheel drive version, which is still fine. It's 181 horsepower. It's a good, slick 6-speed. But if you want that all-wheel drive, if you want that turbo, you're limited to the automatic there. And that's where Mazda going upscale is so true, right? Because if they put a stick shift in that car, then they could have called it the Mazda Speed 3 and done literally nothing else, right? People would have loved it, but they don't want to, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. Never mind. Veloster, and it is. Yeah, totally right. Kenan says, well, the topic I want to poll in the podcast tonight is, why is Thanasi so freaking awesome? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Thank you, Kenan. Check your Venmo. I sent you $10. Thanks, buddy. Joseph says, ideal number of cup holders in a vehicle. I think it is one more than the amount of people that the car sits. So if the car has room for 5, 6 cup holders is the right amount. If the car has room for 2, it's just a coupe. I want 2 cup holders, and then I want a place where I can put my phone, which would be like a 3rd cup holder. So I think it's 1 plus whatever the amount of people that are designed to be in the car should be. And then the last question today comes from Joe Scott. He says, what is your opinion on companies like Carvana and Vroom. So I love these companies, and I'll tell you why. It's not to buy a car necessarily, but it's when you're thinking about buying a car yourself, it's valuing that car quickly with something that is more accurate to what you can get from a dealer than something like Kelley Blue Book is. So if you're considering buying a car, Joe in the chat knows this with those emojis. He knows what I'm about to say. So if you're considering buying a car, let's say you're thinking about, 2019 Veloster N. Okay, it's used, right? The car's up for, let's say it's $23,000. It's got 5,000 miles. You go to Carvana, you go to Vroom, you put in that information. You put in 2019 Veloster N, 9,000 miles. What does Carvana spit back to you? That's the price you try to get that car for. Because that means that if you wanted to get rid of that car, you have now two sources that are willing to give you that money. And hopefully you're actually able to get the car for less than that price so that when you're done with it, you have an out in Carvana and Vroom that'll pick it up off your hands for that price, right? I've done this before. Joe's done this before in the chat, Joe Berger. But leveraging these car sites as a true private party value in terms of like, if I wanted to get rid of my car today, or if I wanted to buy that car, but then I wanted to sell it, or if I wanted to buy that car, is their price good? Use Carvana and Vroom for that. Gone are the days where you go to KBB to check that shit. I'm confident of that. So that is really what I like those guys for. Would I buy a car from them? Maybe. If they had a specific, configuration, maybe they got the right color, maybe they got the right model, maybe they mislabel something, which is my favorite thing, and those guys are definitely mislabeling shit where you can get it for a cheaper price, do it. They also have extensive return policies, so if you get something, don't like it, you can bring it back. So yeah, I recommend them overall, but I would recommend them first as a way for you to check a car's value. For sure. So with that comes the end of today's stream. I want to thank everybody for joining. I apologize again for the problems that I had early on that meant for a little bit of a late start and why these things up here weren't working. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you all for the likes. Thank you all for the follows. Joe says they mislabeled my 1LE. They sold them as a 1SS. Why didn't you send me that car, Joe, so I could have bought it? That's really sad. I could have been better friends with you, but you didn't show me that deal. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. We will see you next week and maybe even in a couple days in the morning. I'm contemplating doing morning streams where we talk about yesterday's car news just for like an hour in the morning on your drive to work with a coffee, but we'll see how that goes. All right, guys.